Welcome back for another episode of 10-Minute Drawing Techniques. I'm your host, Mark Chong, and this is episode 9, Introduction to Background, second edition. I'm redoing this because the last edition was more of a process demonstration, and I didn't think it was as informative as it could have been. So anyway, let's begin right where we left off on episode 8, which was the that was where I was showing you about halfway points. So with the halfway point technique, that was you can create a line and you can add depth information to the line by figuring out, well, where's the halfway point on the line? As this line, if we imagine this thing is not necessarily like a line, but more as, say, a rod, that is sitting in space. If we move the rod and we move it, we turn it so that it's flat against the monitor, the halfway point is dead center. But if we take this end of the rod and we push it further away from us in space, then the center point of the line will start to move up here. Okay. Now you can take a rod and you can expand it into a plane. And if that's where one point is, I can figure out, well, where's the other corner of the plane? Maybe it's about there. And I guess, well, the other corner of the plane, it's going to have to pass through that. So I guess it could be about here. So there's your near corner and there's your far corner. And then, well, gee, how are we going to figure out where's the other sides of these planes? Well, we can either eyeball it, or we can, using the same trick, that's the midpoint of that line anyway, we can figure out lines that pass through these. Okay. See, I'm going very lightly, just to get a feel for it. And I can figure out, oh, there's the far edge of the plane. So the interesting thing about drawing in perspective is it's almost like if you put down certain bits of information. I've been showing you guys point to point. When you do point to point, it means that you're putting down a certain amount of information. There's enough information for your mind to fill in the gap, and you're just drawing over that. You're putting in certain clues for you to follow. Same thing with this technique. When you're taking, when I throw in that extra bit of information, it's enough information for you to go in and figure out, well, gee, this other point is a result of having gone through this point, And this one is the result of having gone through that point. And this point here is the result of having passed through both there and passing both there. And, well, gee, these lines are, it's all about putting down, when it comes to drawing, you have to find out what the essential information is. You have to find out what information is necessary in order for your mind to be able to fill in those gaps. And so when it comes to drawing something like a background, you have to be able to figure out what's the important information that I need in order for me to, draw this kind of thing. Up until now, I've shown you tools regarding perspective, how to take this big, wide, open space, and actually treat it as a three-dimensional playground. Where you can figure out, well, gee, if the horizon's in the middle, you can imagine what happens if there's a line that's way off in the distance that's, oops, got some blobbiness going on. You have a line that's way off in the distance that approaches us, and we can, another technique, you can have walls, and you can, same thing, you can make, this line appear to actually be attached to this wall. These are all tricks in perspective. I've shown you how to draw cones, cubes, and, how to figure this stuff out. And now when it comes to drawing a background, we're going to use all those techniques and figure out, it's one thing to have all these different skills. It's another thing to be able to apply them. And you have to be able to apply the skills in a certain sequence. The sequence in which you apply the skills is very important. It's going to say whether or not your picture is going to fly or it's going to flop. So the thing about doing a background, people, it can be really daunting. It's like, drawing a cube is one thing, right? It's not too, you can eventually get it. It seems like something that's possible to do, to be able to actually draw a cube. You can practice it to the point where, like, hey, I can draw one cube, I can draw another cube. The next task is being able to draw, two cubes side by side, or being able to draw them so that they're slightly rotated, next to each other, or being able to handle different transformations, or being able to draw, cubes attached to cones and cylinders. Being able to handle construction is sort of the next step, being able to, put all these different shapes together. These are all good skills, but when it comes to drawing a background, now it can become a really daunting task to be able to turn this terrible blizzard of a white page into a picture that we can use. So, the first step is figuring out, okay, I'm going to draw a background. I want to be able to imagine and create a new background, from scratch, from this white page. How do we turn this into some beautiful vista that we can see? It means that we're going to have to make some decisions. And, having a subject, being able to draw from life and, being on location and actually drawing it's a lot easier because it's right in front of you. If you can analyze the shapes and volumes and you can understand space and perspective, you can use all the tools that I've shown you, to be able to put all those things together. You still need a procedure, of course, but, when we're drawing from scratch, it's really tough. I guess the pros can do it somehow, some of the old-timers can do it, but I'm still relatively new to drawing. I can't just take this big white blank page and turn it into a landscape that easily. So the first thing I know what I can do is more important than any building, any piece of vegetation, any person, any particular feature in my landscape that I want to draw, in this picture that I'm going to draw, this wide expanse, the most important thing is not a building, it's not the thing that you want to draw, it's actually the lay of the land. It's the terrain, the hills, the valleys, the cliffs. It's also, where's your vantage point? Where are we standing on? Are we standing on a cliff? Are we looking at this from a helicopter? Are we standing at the base of some hills and looking upwards? The important thing is the lay of the land and where we're standing on it. So anyway, we're running a little out of time. We got about a little over 2 minutes left. Let's just get started, and we'll continue into the next episode. So the first thing is figuring out the lay of the land. One thing that we are familiar with, when it comes to landscapes, one thing that we're most familiar with when looking at a landscape is looking at, a map. So let's just draw a map of this place. Let's just draw a floor plan of the place. I'd like to do, a coastal area, a nice little area with maybe a lighthouse. Okay, so first of all, I want to draw a little bit of a bay. So I'll just use a bit of point to point. I'm going to have a big sort of cavity bay in here. We're looking at this from a bird's eye view, and let's just start that. We've got about a minute left, so not to worry, guys. I will post an episode soon after when the time runs out. Okay, so a nice little bay here, and I guess I'll probably like to throw maybe a cute little let's have a little island in the bay. Okay, and being able to, let's see, I want some cliffs along this side, so we'll treat it like a contour map. So maybe all this area, this whole area within here can be sand, but then where it turns into a cliff, there, now it can turn into sand again. Maybe I'll just undo that. Let it turn to cliff, and then this can be here, this can be a rocky region, okay? Because I want to have a lighthouse, and well, you need a lighthouse to ward ships from the rocks. So this is just a rocky region. I guess we can have the lighthouse, up here near the rocks to warn all the ships off. And let's put the lighthouse on the cliff. Yeah, that's kind of nice and dramatic. And what else will I do? Okay, so that's all sandy area. Now let's see, to get to the lighthouse you probably need a pathway. And oh, we're out of time. So I'm going to stop this one and start a new one.